Hello and welcome to The Birth of a New Dimension. My name is Aurora. I'm a galactic walk-in and I'm also a visionary artist. For this next hour, I will be taking you on a journey with your consciousness that will prepare you for the impending and ongoing birth of a new dimension. That is why I called this show what I do. We as a planet, and the planet includes not only human life and consciousness, but all life that is on the planet and associated with the planet, and the consciousness that is the entity of the planet herself. All of us are engaged in this amazing process of transformation. Brief pause. And the end result of this process of transformation will be the bringing together of two formerly divergent realms. The realm of pure energy, or we could call it consciousness, or we could call it the realm of possibilities and probabilities, a non-physical, purely energetic realm, and, to the other side of the equation, combined with the world of matter. So when Einstein created his famous equation, E equals mc squared, on the one hand, he was giving humanity a step up from the Newtonian understanding of the physical realm. Because when Einstein, began to teach people in the early 20th century about quantum physics, humans started to understand that consciousness affects reality. But what Einstein did was also give you just another pre-programmed limitation with the sense that nothing can go faster than the speed of light. But that is an erroneous, it's a simplistic understanding of what's going on in the cosmos, but a necessary level of development to reach. And what I'm talking about here is the equation E, the energy, is on one side of the equation, and mass is on the other side of the equation. And that has set up a dualistic vision of the world, or it has very aptly expressed the dualistic vision that is programmed into all of us. The duality, the binary world. We have left eye versus right eye, and by calculating the minute differences in what we view out of each eye, we are able to create a three-dimensional viewpoint of the world. We have our sense of self versus the world, ego versus the rest of the world. These are all biologically based dualisms. And then in perceiving the rest of the world, like the laws of physics and time and what we see around us, we tend to project onto them our own dualistic nature coming from our biology. So Einstein says energy is at odds with matter. And the new dimension that we are giving birth to here as a collective and as a planet and as a cosmos is the coming together of the formerly divergent realms of spirit and matter. Or if the word spirit makes you feel uncomfortable, let's call it energy or pure consciousness or awareness. Or we could even call it light, but light has some semi-physical properties. It is light in the sense that it is pure information, and that matter is solidified light, or light that has the privilege of going slower than the speed of light. Brief pause. So matter and energy are not actually two opposites, like hot versus cold, constantly pulling against one another, but the programs that have been put into your mind, your software that you're running, might make it appear that way. And the Flying Rainbow Lasagne is a new tool that you have in your consciousness tool belt that I created, that I'm sharing with everyone so that we can resolve all of these dualities. So the shape of the Flying Rainbow Lasagne, it is visible on the banner for the ucy.tv homepage for this very radio show. You can also check out various animations, static images, and sculptural forms of what the Flying Rainbow Lasagne is at my website. It's flyingrainbowlasagne.com, and that's lasagna with an E on the end. And my voice is wonderful for sharing some aspects of information. However, the Flying Rainbow Lasagne is a shape, and so I can spend all day long describing the pointiness of a triangle, but it's nothing until you actually see the shape itself. So allow me to describe the Flying Rainbow Lasagne as the next highest dimensional shape of a torus, or a hypertorus, or if you speak math, what cube is to tesseract, torus is to Flying Rainbow Lasagne. So this also helps you to understand the Flying Rainbow Lasagna is not a static shape. It is a moving shape. It is like the composite image that is created by, a picture of a person hitting a tennis ball. Even though it might look like they have 10,000 arms, each holding a racket, each, moving closer and closer to the ball, that intellectually they only have one arm, and that this is a multiple exposure image. That's what the Flying Rainbow Lasagna is. It is the end result, or the composite image of energy moving over time. And that's why I encourage you to check out my animation of it. It's called The Conception of the Flying Rainbow Lasagna, and this is also easily available on YouTube, or you could check out my YouTube channels, Flying Rainbow Lasagna, in case that phrase has not been burned into your psyche so that you can never forget it. Flying Rainbow Lasagna. And what is special about the Flying Rainbow Lasagna shape is that it allows the interior surface and the exterior surface of the shape to communicate without cutting the surface. So the surface, this is the membrane that divides whatever are the two things that are being divided. So if the things that are being divided, if it is ego or sense of self versus the world, your epidermis is the barrier, the membrane. It is your sense of boundary of what is inside of you versus what is outside of you. And in the cosmos, the boundary, the membrane, is created by the fabric of space, time, and consciousness. So when Einstein was teaching everyone in the early 20th century, he spoke about the fabric of space and time. And I am adding in the third ingredient, consciousness, because that is also one aspect of what we are experiencing here. So we live in this world that is made of a stretchy or malleable membrane, and the membrane is made of space, time, and consciousness. And the challenge is we're not allowed to cut the membrane. And on one side of the membrane, we have the past, and on the other side of the membrane, we have the future, and then we live in the present moment now, which is on the surface of the membrane. And this is science's description of cosmology, or the origins and orderliness of our cosmos. Science describes the spontaneous explosion of all matter out of the zeroth dimension, which is also infinity, which is also the source, which is also what is at the center of the torus shape. That's the singularity. So let's also define terms and be impeccable. I'm not speaking about the singularity that is spoken about in terms of transhumanism, and will use this as an opportunity to state my vehement, antithesis to transhumanism. No, I do not espouse that at all. But many people speak about the singularity as the moment when humanity will become complex enough to combine with machinery and magical things will happen. No. And also, I poo-poo that idea, because in order for magical things to happen, you need no more equipment than what you came into this world with. So that is your birthday suit, your physical container for consciousness and your awareness, the light that is inside of your eyes, and your capacity to feel and to perceive and to be conscious. That is what you need. So the topic for today's broadcast is all about how experts do star travel, and how it is not necessary to have a clank metal spaceship, and to talk about the various different space races. I'm not really interested in naming them like by specific races, like saying a person is French or German or whatever. I prefer to describe beings, groups of beings, according to their value systems and what they eat, like what they need in order to support their life and their consciousness and support their societies. So I've roughly divided up the world of consciousness into two groups, even though I'm trying to move beyond duality. There are beings that use technology. They use artifice. They use either tools or machines or something that is created as opposed to something that is just in existence in the natural realm. And the other group that exists is beings that do not require technology. They use their containers for consciousness, they use energy, they use awareness, but they do not have to build an apparatus to perform a function for them. These are masters of consciousness. So what I would really like to teach everyone here is To travel the stars, you do not need to spend a lot of time digging metal out of the ground, smelting that metal, creating it into wires and metallic panels that can protect you from, the vacuum of space. No. What you need to do in order to star travel like an expert is to cultivate your mind and cultivate your consciousness, because that is your true vehicle. That's actually the vehicle that brought you here into this physical format and has had you flying through time for however many years you have been alive in this physical format. And it is utilizing that capacity to fly through time that you can then utilize the stellar network. So brief pause, and I will get more into what the stellar network is. If you've ever seen the movie Contact or read the book, it's worth it, even though it's kind of an old movie with a not very believable romantic subplot. But the part that is relevant is, in the movie, plans from extraterrestrial, highly advanced races are given to humanity. And the plans are like blueprints for something that has to be built. And the very first thing is decoding the blueprint, because it turns out that it's not something that is a flat, like a two-dimensional blueprint. It's actually three-dimensional. So in order to build the apparatus, first everyone needs to pop forward into the next highest dimension. Instead of reading the blueprint, as a flat plane, they needed to put it together like a three-dimensional puzzle piece. And then the next hurdle that had to be jumped over was international collaboration. To build the actual apparatus, it required resources, and it was on such a grand scale that all of the countries of Earth had to work together and contribute to it. And when they actually built it, it was kind of like a metallic sphere that a person could go inside, and that would be like the astronaut getting inside of their space capsule. And so Jodie Foster is playing the role of the astronaut getting into the capsule. And when they they press the button, they make the machine go. To the outside observers, nothing happens, and the capsule just drops, from a height and falls to the ground. But from the point of view of the experiencer, from Jodie Foster, inside of the capsule, she goes on an extended journey of consciousness, where she meets an image of her dead father, whom she loved very much, has a long conversation, and she learns all about the network that she's traveling on. That essentially humanity was given these plans to build an apparatus to link up with a pre-existing network for star travel, so that they could finally meet and greet the rest of the cosmos. Because if you are intent on building a clank metal spaceship and getting your tin can and fly across the vast, unbelievably, indescribably vast amounts of space that are in interstellar space, it would take you billions of years to get where you wanted to go. In fact, even to have a conversation with the galactic center, if we were to use line-of-sight communication, as in a radio wave or even a light wave, if you were going to use Morse code to communicate in flashes of light from your home planet to the galactic center, it would take billions of years just for your initiatory impulse, hi there, how you doing, to get to the destination, and then for them to reply, billions of years for the cosmos would be at the end. It's like, oh, the entire movie has ended, and now you finally get the return telegram of what you were trying to contact. So we begin to understand that in order to have any kind of meaningful conversation on a grand scale through time, we need to be folding the fabric of time, space, and consciousness. And this is what the Flying Rainbow Lasagne does. So I'm just going to wrap up things on that movie synopsis. When the astronaut, played by Jodie Foster, is in the otherworldly realm, when she has, entered the sphere and is traveling, it doesn't necessarily look like she is floating in the vacuum of space. She doesn't necessarily have zero gravity hair, and she's not flying amidst water droplets. It was a mental construct, and so she experienced sitting on a beach and chatting with her father, and she was imparted with information that basically said that the network that she's traveling on is an ancient network that was created for many different types of races to use, and that they're now invited to be a part of it. Okay, that's end of synopsis of the movie. So now we can get into, because movies like that give us a common vocabulary that I can say, have you ever seen this movie? Well, these are the things that are described, and these things are very similar to what actually exists in the cosmos. So the way that experts do star travel, they do not build a metallic container and put their physical fleshy body in the metallic container and then shoot the metallic container all the way across the vast interstellar distances. No, real experts cultivate their consciousness to the point that it has coherence, in the same way that laser light has coherence. And what that means is that ordinary light is flying all over the place. Just rearranging this microphone here. Ordinary light is flying all over the place. It is not arranged. It is not coherent. All of the light waves go hither, thither, and yon. But laser light, these are like highly trained light waves that all dance together. They go right foot, left foot, right foot, left foot. They're like the chorus line, kicking up their legs like the chorus line from Rockefeller Center in New York City. So these highly organized, highly trained light waves are coherent. They all dance together. And that means that they have they persist. They continue onward instead of dispersing. So an ordinary flashlight, if you shined it up into the sky, it would create a cone shape, like a cone of light, with the fat end spreading away from you and eventually disperse after a few feet. But if you have a laser that is coherent and you shoot it up into the sky, that laser can continue onward indefinitely as long as it doesn't meet or interact with anything that impedes its trajectory, okay? So this is the goal for each one of us as consciousness. Each one of us has as our life goal cultivating our consciousness and our sense of self to the point of laser-like cohesion or coherence. Because when you actually interact with the stellar network, which is analogous to the network in the Jodie Foster movie, you are connecting to a network of consciousness that if you do not have that, when I say coherence, I mean capacity to hold yourself together in your format. The waves, it's like an ocean of consciousness, and imagine incredibly powerful waves that are rolling through this ocean. If you do not have the capacity to hold yourself together, you will be broken apart by the waves. So our experience here in this level of density, in these fleshy bodies, these fleshy garments, this is all about us cultivating our consciousness until we are at the point where we can actually swim in the ocean of consciousness. So this is what I mean when I say that if you require a clank metal spaceship to get off of the surface of your planet, you're not ready to get off the surface of your planet yet. It's incredibly hubristic to think all you have to do is get together, dig up enough metal, get together enough resources, slap it together, put some people in a tin can and send it into the sky, and that's all it takes. And then you can go and colonize another planet. No, I laugh at that ridiculous assertion because other planets are already inhabited by a variety of consciousnesses. And so it would be like saying, well, why don't I just manifest destiny? Why don't I just pack up all my gear from Europe and go across the ocean and find a new continent and settle in the new continent? I'll settle in the new world. Well, the only problem with that is the new world is already populated by Native Americans who are totally happy with their spot there and they don't actually want you to come. So this is the challenge, that we do not need to simply recreate or re-experience the difficulties of, let's say, the Spanish conquest of Mexico and Central America in space. We don't have to do that. That is we go through those experiences on Earth so that we can learn, so that our consciousnesses can be refined, and so that we don't take those difficulties with us into space. if you haven't cultivated your consciousness to the point where you can leave your planet without technology, then you are not prepared to do star travel. So part of this has to do with being sensitive to other consciousnesses. If I'm walking through a forest, every place I put my foot, there's a plant or an insect or something. I'm squashing someone, no matter where I'm walking. So that part of it is respect for all consciousness. And then part of it is being literate as to the musical score of the cosmos. So if you're a musician, you're musically literate, if you can read music, and it means that you can anticipate what is the next note that the band or the symphony is going to play. And if you're like, okay, next note coming up is a C, then you are playing along with the band and everyone sounds great. But if you're not musically literate, everyone else starts playing a C and you are like, I'm playing a D, then you are not harmonically in tune with the cosmos. And so in order to tell where should you go, let's say you've cultivated your consciousness now to the point where you don't need a spaceship, you don't need a space suit, you can simply jump off the surface of your planet. Where are you going to go? How do you decide where to travel to? And the answer is, if you are musically literate as to the musical score of the cosmos, you know where to go and you know when to go. So this has everything to do with my own trajectory here as a walk-in. I was having a conversation earlier this week and I was explaining the basics of it. Sometimes people jokingly ask me, Aurora, what planet are you from? And I even had a community access TV show way back in Woodstock on Channel 23 I jokingly called it Planet Aurora. And on Wednesday nights at 11 p.m., I would invite everyone to my home planet for half an hour where I would tell them about things like ancient aliens in the Bible or something like that. And this is, from many, many years ago before the History Channel had that show, Ancient Aliens. So the whole point being, I don't come from a planet or a particular place in space. It's not accurate to describe my origins as being from a location, like saying I'm from France or I'm from Germany or I'm from Antarctica. I am part of a collective of consciousness. And I've spoken before, I know how off-putting it can seem to humans right now on Earth, the idea of a collective consciousness or a hive mind, that has all sorts of negative connotations, like the Borg from Star Trek, some kind of artificial intelligence network where you lose your individuality, like resistance is futile, join the Borg, and you stop being yourself. No, my collective is the opposite of that. Even though I am connected to an extensive network of consciousness, I do not lose my own individuality. And this is just like saying, even if you're in a band, you don't have to stop being who you are just because you are playing along with other beings. But what you do have to do is everybody has to live or behave according to these mutual agreements that say we are all highly trained musicians. We auditioned to be in this band, and we choose to play the notes according to the cosmic score. Because if you have people join your band who are punk rock anarchists who are busy improvising not even following the notes of music, then that is going to disrupt the harmonious structure of the entire organization. So my collective, it is like a symphony where you have to audition and show that you are highly trained enough to read the score of the cosmos and that you are willing to play along with it. And again, when you are just in life, when you are a musician, just because you play the notes that Mozart wrote hundreds of years ago, it doesn't mean that you don't get to put your own intonation into it. You do. This is called musical interpretation. So in my consciousness collective, each one of us follows the dictates, the conductor of the cosmic symphony tells us what to do. And we are not vanilla or flavorless, boring pablum consciousnesses. We are allowed to take that impulse and translate it through our individuality. You get self-expression. So that's why it's not the Borg. It's not the hive mind where you sign up and then, lose your sense of self and your own sense of will. It's not like that at all. It is more like a profound artistic collaboration to the point of lovemaking. In the same way that on Earth, physical lovers are collaborating physically, they're sharing energy, they're sharing intent to the point of conceiving new life. In my collective, my non-physical collective of consciousness in hyperspace, we are constantly engaged in the act of creation. Creating music and art and poetry, and what it looks like is a moving, multicolored polygon, meaning multi-sided shape. And the colors and movements are part of the tones or the sounds that are emitted. So it's very beautiful to look at, it's very beautiful to perceive, and it is a living ship. So the ship is, just like your physical body, is comprised of individual cells that all work together to keep the whole body alive. The consciousness collective is a ship. It is a vessel that we use to travel from star system to star system, and each of the individuals are like individual cells, and we all work together to keep the ship alive. So this is not the type of spaceship where a captain on the bridge says to the ship, "You will fly here at this time," and, says to their first mate, "Engage the engines now," and then the ship flies there, like without any choice in the matter. Oh, no. This is the type of ship that is alive and conscious, like riding a horse, except I think a lot of people in this time and place don't respect horses and their own innate intelligence, but it is like having a intelligent, living vehicle that takes you someplace. And if you said to your ship, "I've charted our course and we're going to fly over here at this time," and if the ship says, "I don't want to go over there at that time," then you don't go over there at that time. So this becomes a collaborative partnership made of all of the cells of the individual body, or all of the individuated consciousnesses that have auditioned for the band and got into the band. It is democratic. It is about all of those individual consciousnesses working together, and the whole, the ship herself has to say, "Yes, this is what I want, this is where I wish to go." This is not that different from Earth and the structure of planetary consciousness. Brief pause. So Earth, the planet that we're on, is also a type of ship, like a spaceship that is flying through time and space. And again, the same type of people that don't recognize the innate intelligence of horses and other animals might have trouble recognizing the innate intelligence of Earth. Earth is actually a person, and the natural world, like plants and animals and the biochemical processes that support the biosphere, these are the expressions of Earth's consciousness. We are a part of her dream or her consciousness manifestation. And right now, we're going through amazing transformations. This is all about humans finally tuning their instruments and joining up with the dream of the planet, because the planet is not dreaming about gouging her surface and mining, elements and minerals out of her surface in order to create more industry. That's self-destruction. The planet is not actually dreaming of self-destruction. So humans have been influenced by a non-earthly consciousness to perform some of the destructive actions that are harming Earth. This is called pollution, all right? When you're polluting Earth, Earth is not telling you to do it. I know in this time and place, humans sometimes are self-destructive, but that's not the way you're supposed to be. So humans in this time and place do ingest things that are harmful to them, like smoking tobacco or, drinking substances that might make you feel temporarily good, but then have long-term health effects. So humans do engage in self-destruction. So that would make you think that Earth would do something like that. But no, Earth is not self-destructive. So she would not say, I'm going to broadcast an idea to all of the humans on Earth that they should, plunder my resources and then create pollution and then create out of balance, for example, weather systems or out of balance bacterial contaminants or like algae blooms in the Gulf of Mexico that are the result of nitrogenous fertilizers being used on chemical-based farms. Earth is not actually sending out those ideas. Those ideas are coming from a non-earthly consciousness, all right? So Earth wants her trajectory to go in a certain direction, the direction of health and vitality, sustainable resources that don't harm or pollute the planet so that this system can be upheld. If Earth were self-destructive, she would say, I want you all to use me like a Kleenex and then wad me up and throw me away. And this is what some people are actually believing, that it is a good thing to leave the planet in a clank metal spaceship. We'll cultivate Mars or, go somewhere else, find an exoplanet that we can fly to and then live there. And in case you haven't gotten it from the earlier part of this broadcast, that's a terrible idea that shows how undeveloped Earth surface humans are, that you would pollute your own surface area and then wish to fly to a new planet and impose your structure and your energy and your consciousness on that new planet and begin to pollute the new planet. Because this is really, really deep. In order for us as humans to consume physical food, we have to have probiotic gut bacteria. And I will tell you that those gut bacteria are not harmonious to the bacteria that are on whatever exoplanet you're going to go to. So unless you're prepared to totally clean out your intestines so you have no bacteria in your intestines and then get inoculated with the bacteria of the new exoplanet that you're going to, and you're also going to have to clear all of the yeast colonies and mites off of the surface of your skin, totally sterilize your entire body and then become inoculated with the fungi and yeasts and microorganisms of that other planet, that it's not practical because your physical containers were designed to be on Earth. It's like your outfits were created for this party. Your outfits do not translate to a different occasion. And it is insulting to the rest of the cosmos to try to do so. So now we have to get down to, how do experts do star travel? So the first part is cultivating your consciousness as an individual. This is creating your own coherent structure. And in order to do so, a lot of it is meditation and mindfulness. It is the refinement process that I've spoken about and that I always draw in that picture of the time vortex. The idea that each one of us is circling the needle of our awareness from the periphery of, quote unquote, the record or the song of our life towards the center where the needle, the record goes on the spindle, and that wormhole, that's the tor, the center of the torus. It is the singularity, it's the zeroth dimension, it's infinity, it's the presence of all possibilities and probabilities. That is where we are aligning our consciousness. And we go through all of these iterations through various different timelines within our life. This is not reincarnation over many lifetimes, although we do that. This is being reinserted many times within the same corporeal existence until you are cultivated to the point where your awareness is in alignment with the source. And this process of cultivation does not mean that you cease to be an individual. I still maintain my individuality, and I also identify with the planet, and I identify with the stellar network, and I identify with the source of consciousness, like the supermassive black hole at the center of our galaxy. So it is a question of being able to dilate your identity, either to expand it outward to the grandest expanse or to focus it to the present experience of being one individuated human. It's just like being in a band. You have to keep the beat yourself. You have to have that own internal rhythm. That's your internal coherence. And you have to know how to play your own instrument and which notes you play. And if you play the piccolo, it does you no good to study the drum music, because that is not even for your instrument at all. So this is why what I teach radical self-responsibility and not having an external authority figure. Not me, not and any god, guru, or external person that tells you what to do. And the Flying Rainbow Lasagne is not something outside of you. The idea is that you embody that shape as your own connection to the divine. So I explained the Flying Rainbow Lasagne is a shape that allows us to bring together two formerly divergent realms. This is what is allowing us to reconnect to the stellar network, because we've been disconnected from it for a long time because of certain ideas and software programs. They're not truthful ideas. They're like static or literally like erroneous computer programs, corrupt programs. And that's what I said. Einstein helped us out a little bit, gave us some greater insight, but also just gave us more bars on the cage of consciousness by speaking about the limitations of the speed of light and not being able to move faster than the speed of light. With the creation of the Flying Rainbow Lasagne, it becomes possible now for each one of us to rearrange our genetic structure. Aurora, what in the world do you mean by that? Well, what I mean is your genes are not static objects. They are not X-shaped chromosomes. I mean, sometimes they are, but for a large portion of the cell life, your genes are unfurled, like the way a sweater is made out of one piece of yarn and can be unfurled. And it is a vibrating, quivering, dancing mass at the center of each one of your cells that is called chromatin. And this chromatin, it's the blueprint of your life. It's the blueprint of how your physical body is made. It's the blueprint of experiences. And when it is supercoiled, like wrapped back up tightly into its chromosomal format, during some of the stages of wrapping, it creates a toroidal or donut-shaped shape. And this is analogous to the donut shape that we have as our time body, our non-physical body that surrounds and interpenetrates our physical body. And the whole point is, when you embody the Flying Rainbow Lasagne, you apply this oscillating maneuver to your supercoiled DNA. Your DNA then turns from a torus shape into a hypertorus. This allows us to rewrite or reformat the genes. And it's analogous to, in the Jodie Foster movie, the blueprints that they got were, at first they printed them out on flat pieces of paper. And they said, we don't understand these blueprints. Nothing makes sense. And it wasn't until they took the flat pieces of paper and they formed it into a third-dimensional object, like a cube, that they said, oh, now these blueprints make sense. So this is what's going on with your DNA and with your genetic heritage. Humanity experienced what I jokingly refer to as the genetic squashing, and this was about 10 or 15,000 years ago, and came with the fall of consciousness, what is known as, the exit from the Garden of Eden or the end of the mythological realm of Atlantis. But this was everybody's genetic code was degraded and became flat and two-dimensional, and that's actually not what we're supposed to be shaped like. So in order to achieve our next highest stage of evolutionary development of our consciousness, we need to transform our bodies into the next highest dimension. We need to add another dimension. We need to go from being two-dimensional flat objects into being three-dimensional objects, and then even add motion to that, making us four-dimensional objects. We need to do a lot more than that. That's why I'm kind of laughing with the way I'm saying it with my voice. As we become multi-dimensional objects, we begin to experience time differently. We no longer have this bifurcation of past versus future, with us balanced precipitously on the present moment now. I use the analogy of a little ant walking across my hand and having first to, be at the base of my palm, then in the middle of my hand, and then at my fingertips. And this is just like everyone here on Earth having to wake up in the morning and then have their lunch and then have their dinner. And dinner is like at my fingertips. And if you were a little ant, if you could fold the flat plane that you are walking across, you don't have to go very far at all to get from the base of my hand to my fingertips. And if you can fold the fabric of space, time, and consciousness, you don't have to go very far at all in terms of time in order to get to your destination. So as I said, if you sent out a Morse code flashing light message to the galactic center that says, "Hi, my name is Aurora, let's chat," by the time it actually reaches the galactic center, not only will you be dead, your entire civilization will be gone. Your planet might not even be there anymore. And by the time they respond and send back the Morse code flashing light response, possibly the entire universe will be over. It is not practical. The time lag makes it totally impractical in terms of being able to have an interstellar conversation. So to have a meaningful interstellar conversation or interaction, we have to become adept at folding space, time, and consciousness. And this is analogous to achieving our adult form. Like in the insect world, there's the egg, there's the pupa, there's the chrysalis, and then there's the adult form. Oh, I'm sorry if I missed the worm form. Egg, worm, pupa, chrysalis, adult. Okay, so you have like a caterpillar that can only inch along on a leaf or a stem. And when it goes through its transformation in the chrysalis, it achieves its adult winged form. And it is then higher dimensional. It's not stuck to the two-dimensional surface of a leaf. It is now able to fly from flower to flower. And not only is it, more freedom to be able to fly from flower to flower, but a butterfly has completely changed its food source from a caterpillar. Caterpillars chew up leaves, munch like dense stuff, and butterflies only drink nectar. They drink the refined flower essence, the most highly refined substance that the plant can make. Their food is very high vibrational food. So right now, humans eat physical leaves, like the caterpillar, eating a bunch of leaves. However, when we achieve our multidimensional format, our food will be different. How we feed our consciousnesses will be different. So this also relates to how my consciousness collective, where I come from. The food that we eat is food of unconditional love. That's like the gas that makes our car go. And that is also why we have various adventures and experiences. We travel from star system to star system. And so this is, why experts do it. We do this in order to play the music of the cosmos and in order to learn and grow and have new experiences and have new energy come into our collective. So anytime you're having experiences, for example, being on Earth and eating lunch, I do not take with me the physical, eggs or the physical tomatoes. I do, however, take a recording of the analog experience of being here in the flesh and having taste buds and eating my lunch. It is a memory. It is the experience of being here. And that memory is portable and it is translatable into a format that I can have even if I no longer have a physical body with taste buds. And I can even share that memory with another being who doesn't have a physical body and might never have had a physical body. So it is how we feed each other in this higher dimensional collective by sharing these memories of what we ingested when we had physical bodies in various different times and places. So I have spoken about this on this broadcast in the past. I once ate some really wonderful fried chicken that my friends made. My friends are foodies and they know how to do it right, and I usually eat really healthy food, but on this occasion I ate fried chicken that was fried in lard. And if there are any vegans that are out there listening, I'm sure you're horrified. People have made comments. They're like, that doesn't sound like a very pleasant thing to share with higher dimensional consciousnesses at all. Have to understand, whatever is food for your physical body, it is beautiful and good to eat. So if you're a cat and you're eating a mouse, you're like, this is the most delicious mouse brain I've ever crunched on. And you make a memory of what that experience is. And then if you share that essence of crunching mouse brain with another consciousness, they don't say, ew, mouse brain is disgusting, I would never eat that. They are tuned in to your blissful enjoyment of eating the food that is exactly right for you. So yes, a dung beetle creates a blissful memory of the best pile of dung they ever ate, and that is transmitted or saved as a recording for that dung beetle in the future. This is how we must understand. Being here, submerged in the physical and experiencing the flow of time, is a wonderful opportunity where you get to record experiences that you can then return to those experiences for increased nourishment, even when you no longer have a physical body. And this is not the same as saying like you're going to become a ghost or anything like that. It's the antithesis of that, actually, because the idea of a hungry ghost that wanders the gray plain, these are cautionary tales or myths from various cultures that speak about people that did not live well. And so when they died, they did not have a mouth in the afterlife to eat the food of the afterlife. That's a Japanese folktale about the hungry ghosts. This even goes back to the Egyptian Book of Coming Forth into Day, which is sometimes mistranslated as the Egyptian Book of the Dead. But in that book, which is a series of spells and incantations to perform over a mummified corpse so that it can live well in the next world, there's one particular incantation that is called the opening of the mouth ceremony. And if you don't do that, then the mummy is forced to wander the afterlife without being able to eat the food of the afterlife. So it's like a form of, torture to be treated in that way. So if we live well, if we spend time cultivating our consciousness to the point of coherence while we are still in the physical body, when it is time for us to no longer have a physical body, either through death or through ascension, we will be able to eat the food of the afterlife. And the difference between death and ascension is the difference between being focused on the bullseye, which is like the wormhole that allows you to exit this level of reality, or being focused on the boundary that keeps you inside of this level of reality. If you hit the membrane of death, you are unmade, you circulate back to the beginning, and you are reassembled, and you try the next iteration, the next possible set of combinations to see if you can make the right choices and get out of this level of reality. And when you get out of this level of reality, it is not an end of your consciousness. It's not the end of the journey. It's not like, oh, life sucks so bad, I can't wait to not exist anymore. No, it's not like that at all. It is achieving the next level of excitation, just like an electron that jumps from one level of excitation in the electron shell to the next level of excitation. So you leave this realm, but you do not leave experience. You do not stop growing. You do not stop learning. When I speak about the trajectory of consciousness, I'm speaking about consciousness is learning. There's really only one consciousness that is being emitted from the source and coming out into density and learning and returning and broadcasting back what it has learned and then being emitted again. This is the refinery of consciousness. This is what I mean by the trajectory of consciousness. So consciousness is here in order to do this learning. Brief pause. And the idea is that while you're in the physical, you cultivate yourself to coherence, and then the difference between death and ascension. If you die, your consciousness leaves your physical body and your physical body decomposes. And eventually all of the processes, the energy of your physical matter is released, but it's just over a long amount of time. Or if you're cremated, it's instantaneous. You go from being a solid to being a plasma pretty quickly. If or when you ascend, the physical matter of your body is kindled, like the way kindling starts a fire. So instead of like the fires of a crematorium transforming your physical body into a non-physical state, it is the fires of awareness that transform the body into a higher or non-physical state. So you don't bring your body with you, but you do use your body, however, you do use your body as fuel for your journey of consciousness. And when in the ancient Egyptian world, they described what you did in life as creating your bark, B-A-R-Q-U-E. These were the rafts that sailed along the Nile in that day. During life, you built your raft, and then upon death, you launched your raft and you saw how well put together it was. And if it was not well built or well formed, or if it was built out of rotten wood, of course it sank. And if it was well built, then it would sail on and carry your consciousness to the next place. This is the idea of ascension. So I want to go all into Judeo-Christianity and the idea of apocalypse and the idea of having to have all of that as a software program. It's mental programming that says you have to have total destruction in order to have total renewal. But it's another fiction. And we can rewrite our software. We can rewrite our ideas. This is what the Flying Rainbow Lasagne is. It allows you to write a new story, write a new narrative, edit the things that you do not enjoy, and create new possibilities or innovate new structure. So when I'm saying the Egyptians said, cultivate your boat while you're on earth, and then at death, or the end of your life, you get to see if your boat actually floats. That is what you do when you cultivate coherence of your consciousness. This is what I'm talking about when I say your mind or your consciousness, that is your vehicle for star travel. And while you're here, you should be learning about all the things that you need to learn about in order to make that journey. So it might be learning about polygons and geometry and shapes and colors, or it might be learning about music, or it might be learning about ancient cultures. But it is also learning about your body, learning about the flow of energy, like chi or prana, as it is flowing through your body, because that is the energy that still flows through us even when we no longer have a physical body. That is the energy that transports our awareness from place to place, okay? So you're on a planet, you cultivate your consciousness to the point where you no longer need to use chlorophyll as an intermediary for catching light. This is big, because in order to travel from star system to star system, unconditional love is the food. It is light. We ingest pure light or pure energy, pure intelligence. The fried chicken that I ate has been translated into pure intelligence, and that is a format that I can share with any other being that is out there. So you cultivate your consciousness while you are on the surface of the planet, and then also become cosmically literate, like you can read the musical score of the cosmos, so you know when it's time to play your instrument. And when it's time to play, that's like saying it's now time to jump off the surface of your planet. And you have created your own capacity to eat sunlight directly and create your own microclimate around your body, so you do not require a spacesuit or a spaceship. And like I described my collective, the living vessel is created by many individuated cells that come together. So this requires you becoming a love being, flat out. In order to get on board this type of vessel, it is like making love. It is not like climbing into a car or a truck or anything like that. It is entering a woman. It is making love to a living presence. And it has to be consensual. It has to be done in the right way. You can't rape your way on board, is what I'm trying to say. It's a different level of consciousness and a different level of reality than most humans can even conceive of, because you're submerged in this culture down here. And no offense to you when I say that this is a barbaric culture. I'm not actually talking about humans being violent, like the capacity to, kill or mutilate other people. I'm talking about the value system that says that might makes right. Only the strong survives, and to the victor goes the spoils. It's the idea that strength gives validity. That if you are the strongest, most muscular person, then you get to be the leader, because you can punch anyone else you want in the face. And that's the way it's supposed to be. The biggest and strongest gets to be the leader. And that is not the same across all cultures on Earth. Like, there are some cultures in the Far East that value humbleness, or the capacity to be quiet and listen to others, to be receptive, that to people in the Far East, like in China, leadership qualities are not just about being bombastic and being louder and stronger than everyone else. It also has to do with being wise, being perceptive, sometimes keeping your mouth shut and actually thinking. And that's they're values that are not barbarian values. They're values that say, even if you are an old person without big muscles, I value your mind and what you have to say, and you can be a leader too. Okay, so you're coming from this barbarian might makes right value system. It makes it very difficult for people from this time and place to imagine what it is like to get on board one of these vessels. It's like auditioning to be in a band. You don't get to be in a band just because you have the biggest muscles and you can punch everyone else in the face, or to be in a symphony. Like, can you imagine taking your violin to a symphony and then saying, I will punch you in the face, like, now let me in and I will play. Like, no, you get to be in the symphony because you demonstrate your capacity to play your instrument at a virtuoso level. So you get to fly on one of these ships of consciousness if you demonstrate that you have cultivated your consciousness to the level of being a virtuoso, to the level of being what we would say a master of love, like of unconditional love, not necessarily of romantic love, a master of respect, because this unconditional love is necessary so that you respect all of the other organisms that you will be interacting with, which are actually yourself, coming from a vastly different direction and moving at a vastly different rate. This is about becoming prepared to have a positive and benevolent interaction with the rest of consciousness. So you should stay on your own planet and cultivate yourself until you're ready to get off your planet, and then have a beautiful divine lovemaking partnership with the rest of the cosmos, as opposed to using technology to kind of cheat and jump off the surface of your planet prematurely and going around and imposing you and your structure and your thoughts and your culture and what you think is right on everyone else. And there might be some very beautiful, subtle cultures out there that would be totally wiped out if clank-like metal spaceships were allowed to fly around and crush everyone else. I know there's a lot of fodder here for future discussions, because we're going to talk about, what people call on Earth disclosure, all right? We'll talk about that too, but that will be for another time. Thank you for being with me as we give birth to the new dimension.